Woo-wee. That was fun. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show, presented by BetUS. Hold on, let me double check the final score because I think the Knicks may have just scored again. Beat the Sacramento Kings in Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. Yes, a final score of 143 to 120. Let me go through some numbers first, and then we'll actually talk about the game because there's definitely some interesting stuff to talk about with the game itself. But I feel like an performance like tonight deserves its due shout out. So first things first, this is the second time the Knicks have scored at least 100 and the second time the Knicks have scored at least 140 points this season. They finished with 143 in this game. They got 145 against the Denver Nuggets earlier this season. That's in terms of a regulation game. In Knicks history, in terms of regulation games that do not go into overtime, this ties for the 12th most points the Knicks have ever scored in a game, and it is only the 4th time since 1980 that they have managed to put up at least 143 points in a basketball game. So there is that. The Knicks also finished tonight with, again, let me double check, make sure they didn't get any in under the buzzer. No, that's not right. They did not get 53 assists. Yes, final assist total for the Knicks tonight, 40. It is the second time they have gotten at least 40 assists in a game this season, making them only the second team in the league this season to generate at least 40 assists in multiple games. The other team to do it was the team that the Knicks got 40 assists or more in the first time this season, the Denver Nuggets. They got 45 assists against the Nuggets. That, of course, is their franchise record. But 40, not too shabby. And then as far as individual accolades, and they did go through some of these on the broadcast, but feels worthwhile to give these guys their due praise. Josh Hart continues to move up the ranks of the Knicks triple-double lists. I believe I'll double-check this one, but I think this was his 6th triple-double of the season. Finishes this game with, again, this is a guy who never had a triple-double until last January 20th. So he is now up to, I believe, a dozen for his career. And they've all happened in the last calendar year, which is frankly wild. 20 points, 18 rebounds, 7 on the offensive glass, 11 assists, and throw in a couple of blocks and a steal for good measure. Pretty nice night for Josh Hart. And then I'm going to save the best for last because his efforts in this game kind of got lost in the sauce because this thing turned into such a blowout and kind of frankly, a laugher by the end of this one. And this isn't going to be any kind of like all-time achievement for him. But OG Anunoby in this game finished with 33 points on 18 shots, 12 of 18 shooting, 4 of 7 from deep. And like Benji said it earlier in the year, and he quote tweeted himself tonight, like it's either all or nothing for OG. And it is great to see him back to being in the all column because that dude, the way he was going out there tonight, in terms of the offensive side of the ball was outstanding. And by the way, I think the defensive apex version of OG Anunoby, we saw that version a couple times. I know Monk got him on a couple of occasions, but he also made a ton of splash plays. And there's a reason that a lot of the Kings' normal contributors did not do what they usually do. Yes, I know Monk went off. We'll talk about that. But like light night for Fox, light night for DeRozan, OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges had a lot to do with that. And actually, I'm sorry. One more number. 5,000. Yes, 5,000. Not all scored tonight, although it seemed like they were at certain points in time. Points for Jalen Brunson as a Knick. According to Knicks PR, and I'm just going to go ahead and read the tweet. Jalen Brunson reached 5,000 points as a Knick, the fastest to ever do so in franchise history, 190 games, passing Bernard King and Carmelo Anthony, who did it in 191 games each. So by one game, Jalen Brunson, you could say, depending on what your barometer is, officially off to the greatest scoring start to a career in Knicks history. That's pretty freaking cool. So we're going to start off with those numbers, and now we can get into the game, which obviously I said a whole lot of great offensive numbers. And I think the biggest takeaway from this game, if you were watching it from an unbiased perspective, if you were just like an NBA fan who tuned into this game, you're like, wait a minute. The Kings over the last dozen games since they fired Mike Brown as head coach and hired Doug Christie as coach, before tonight, had been the 8th best defense in the NBA and had the 5th best net rating in the NBA, obviously because their offense is very good too. But 8th best defense in the NBA over the last dozen games. Where was that tonight? Because that looked like a team that had never played NBA defense. Again, I'll shout out Benji. He tweeted out before, like, through 3 quarters, it was the worst defense he's ever seen a team play, and I'm not sure how facetious he was being. They were atrocious, but give the Knicks credit because, to me, that's why the assist number tonight is such a hashtag meaningful stat, because the Knicks, like, you could try to go one-on-one against these Kings defenders because they don't, with the starting lineup they're currently running out there, they don't currently have a plus defender in the starting lineup. I guess Keegan Murray would be the closest thing, and I'm sorry, he's not a plus defender at this point in his career. They bring Keon Ellis off the bench, but it's not like anybody on the Knicks is scared of Keon Ellis, least of all Jalen Brunson. So, you could go one-on-one on these guys. Give the Knicks credit, though, because they were not settling for anything one-on-one. Other than Brunson on a couple of occasions, and he's the one guy who kind of has to do the one-on-one occasionally because that is what starts the chain of dominoes from falling. And obviously, the Kings knew that they had no chance of stopping him one-on-one, so they started to compromise their defense in significant ways. And every time they did so, the Knicks just pass, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, did the Knicks hit their threes tonight? Absolutely. Was that a sight for sore eyes after they had been in kind of a little mini slump over the last few games? Yes, they hit 17 of 36 from long range in this game, so hopefully this busts them out of their slump. 47.2% from long range, so that's great. But yeah, the Kings defense, not good. Give the credit to Knicks for taking advantage of it. As far as the game and the flow of the game, obviously a weird game. Knicks go out in front by 18 points in the first half, getting everything they want offensively, doing enough defensively, taking care, crossing all their T's, dotting all their I's. And yet it didn't feel like, it still felt like a game. It didn't feel like the Knicks were dominating. It felt like they were the better team. And then they had gone on a little push there. And then it was the Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis show where they just, it felt like for an entire half of a quarter, they were just getting whatever they wanted. Yeah, and it was Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns, and Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns could not figure out heads or tails what to do with that. As I'm watching it, I'm like, there has to be an adjustment here. The most obvious one was get Hart off of Monk at some point, put OG on him, and they did not make that adjustment in the first half. We saw OG back on Monk a little bit in the second half. But other than that, it's like, we always talk about coverages here. Obviously, they were in drop. That's drop at its worst. You will not see drop coverage exploited more than that because Towns was not really, it's not that he wasn't taking away anything, but he was paying extra careful attention to Sabonis, and Hart just couldn't get around the screen, so Monk was walking into these easy mid-rangers, which is like, on one hand, it's like, okay, if you're going to concede a shot in the NBA today, you concede those. But, it's like when a guy like that is feeling it, and I know Monk isn't, an all-star level player, but he can be an all-star level scorer when he gets it going, and obviously he got it going. So, you got Cat staying attached to Sabonis, and Hart unable to get around the screens. I'm not sure I would have wanted to switch that because, Sabonis as a one-on-one guy against a smaller defender. I'm not sure that there's too many people in the league that are better than him, to say nothing of what Monk could do to Cat. So I don't know if a switch was the answer. Something more aggressive, hedging hard at the Sabonis screen. That's the thing. What makes him so unique is he's not a point guard, but he's a damn good passer. And you saw there were occasions where he was able to hit Sabonis where the Knicks got a little bit more aggressive in that coverage. So it's one of those things. It's like, not tip your cap. Like, the Knicks should have figured out something else, even if it's putting someone else on Monk. But I can't sit here right now and be like, oh, well, they clearly should have done this, other than, again, switching up who they were guarding Monk with. Because if you start helping off the corners, well, then you get into the problems that we've been yelling and screaming about the whole year. Why are the Knicks giving up 1,000,000 threes? Well, they're giving up 1,000,000 threes because they're helping off the corners, specifically in drop, which is the coverage where you're not supposed to have to help off. It's when you do the more aggressive stuff, then you need to help. But I digress. But it was just 6 minutes. It was just 6 minutes. And other than those 6 minutes, I mean, the Knicks played kind of a perfect basketball game. You can't ask them to do any more on offense. Defensively, I thought they did enough in the second half. I mean, the third quarter wasn't necessarily beautiful, but like, you limited to the Kings to 25 out of the gate and you shut the water off completely in the fourth. Like, they never had a chance to make that a game in the fourth. So, like 53 points to this Kings team in the second half, the way they've been rolling, I'll sign for that any day of the week, twice on Sunday. And it is almost Sunday. Last big thing from this game, 10-minute delay in the third quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, in which they were trying to make sure, I guess, the baskets were level or the rim was level, or the basket was centered, or it was the right height. I mean, I'd be curious what folks say about that after the game. I'm looking just really, really quick. Yeah, I mean, nothing really on that yet. Hopefully we get some more about it. What else? Precious Achiuwa had an extended stretch on the floor in place of Karl-Anthony Towns in the second half. And if you want to tell me that was the adjustment that the Knicks made to try to guard the pick and roll, I would say that you're probably right, because you can't switch Cat onto a smaller player, but you can get a lot more aggressive when Precious Achiuwa is out there. So that's really the biggest adjustment they made. Now, that took Towns off the floor, and Towns sat for, I mean, it felt like he sat for 13, 14 minutes there with Achiuwa in the game from the middle of the third quarter until, he put Cat in to get some run late with under 5 minutes left and the game was already decided. But, is Precious perfect there in this particular matchup? Not perfect. Sabonis, like, if Sabonis gets him under the basket, Sabonis could still body him because he just doesn't have the size. But you saw the advantage of Precious on those consecutive possessions in the fourth quarter where the Knicks really put the game away, where he got 2 consecutive steals when they were trying to get the ball into Sabonis. And before he even got those steals, he was switching and moving around. And that's a nice thing that you could do with Precious. And I know I've been predicting since before the season started that, like, I did not think both Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa would be on this team after the trade deadline. You watch a game like tonight, and you're like, well, this is a game that was a Precious Achiuwa game. And obviously, we've seen a lot of games where we're like, well, man, that would have been a Mitchell Robinson game. So, I don't know. Maybe there is room for both of these guys on this roster moving forward, especially with the fact that you can play Precious, and they obviously have played Precious a lot next to Karl-Anthony Towns. So shout out to Precious Achiuwa. Terrible job by me. I've been talking for over 15 minutes, and I've not yet mentioned the name of Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet, welcome to the party, my friend. It was great to see him get in, not only in the first quarter, but like midway through the first quarter. Tibbs continues to tinker with this rotation. He made 5 substitutions in the first quarter, ended the first quarter without a single starter in. OG was in, but OG had already come out when Shamet came in. OG was actually the first to sit. And so that was interesting. And then, He ended up getting OG finishing the half, and you got a whole bunch more subs in the second. But it feels like he's continuing to find his way and figure out his way. Shamet again came in early in the second quarter. But again, it's like interesting stuff. Deuce McBride comes in, plays 12 consecutive minutes in the first half. He's the last sub to check into the game. Doesn't check into the game until early in the fourth quarter. Doesn't even stay in for that long. So I thought that was interesting. But, Shamet maybe showing one last gasp of life, telling the front office or telling the coach, like, hey, you don't got to go out and trade for for another wing player or someone else to support this bench. You got me right here. I could come in and I could do some things. And sure as shit, what did he do? He came in and did the thing that his reputation, his over his whole career has said, like, this is what he is good at, except he hasn't always lived up to that reputation because he's, not as good a three-point shooter as his reputation would suggest, but came in, hit 3 threes in the beginning portion of the game, including 2 right off the bat. So that was great to see. Mention McBride, not a lot of minutes in the second half. He was also off shooting. I think he was 0 of 5 in the first half. So I don't know. Does that contribute to it? Maybe, maybe not. But just like up and down, you look at the offensive output. Every starter scored at least 18 points. When Towns was in there towards the end, I was thinking to myself, is he giving Towns in there for every starter to get over 20 points? Which I don't know that's happened since the championship team. I think I looked that up actually earlier this year. But didn't happen. He finished with 18, but still, like, you look at these numbers, 18 and 15 for Towns, and he was the worst of the starters as far as the numbers go. Mikal Bridges, I mentioned him briefly before. I should give him more of a shout out. 27 points on 15 shots. He was automatic. 7 assists for Bridges to go with 11 for Brunson and 11 for Hart. You love to see that. Just like a really good performance. A really, really good performance, the sort of performance you wanted to see after 3 days off, the sort of performance that sets them up to have a really nice homestand, and the sort of performance that I think, again, defensively, it wasn't perfect. You had the stretch in the second quarter, but overall, like, we've been waiting, right? We've been waiting. When is this team going to start to rise up and show us that, hey, yeah, we are a contending team? I think this, we're always kind of moving. Are we moving the piece forward or are we moving the piece backwards? And I think tonight was a night you moved the piece forward a little bit. You got a little bit closer to where you want to be, to the type of basketball team you want to look like, all things considered. And hey, it's their 30th win of the year. This team is 30 and 16. It's pretty good. It's not bad. Okay. Before we get to the autograph signature moment of the game, I have to give a special shout out, very briefly, to my daughter, who is in the other room. She's not making a guest appearance tonight. Although if I was smart, I would get her in here. But of course I'm not that bright, and I don't want to abandon my post now. She is a member of our local Girl Scout troop, and it is Girl Scout cookie season. So if you're watching this right now, Mark, our producer extraordinaire, is producing tonight, is dropping a link to her Girl Scout cookies, to buy her Girl Scout cookies, in the chat right now. If you're listening to this episode tomorrow, or you're watching this episode tomorrow, you'll be able to find that same link in the description of the episode. So all you got to do is click on the link. And here's what I'm going to do. All right. If you want some recognition, I didn't tell Andrew that I was going to do this, and he's probably going to get very mad at me that I'm doing it. But if you buy some Girl Scout cookies, okay, and you send, like, whether it's a screenshot that you bought a box of cookies, I guess that would be it, right? You'd send like a screenshot or some proof that you bought cookies from my beautiful daughter, Scarlett Ray Macri, and you email that proof to knicksfilmschool@gmail.com. I'll give you a shout out. If you want a shout out on the pod, give you a shout out on the pod. If you want a shout out in the newsletter, I'll give you a shout out in the newsletter. So we're doing cookies for shout outs. That's the transaction that's going on here. So please, it's for a good cause, which you could read about in the link if you click on it. So shout out to my daughter's troop here in the friendly confines at at Cobble Hill. And everybody go buy some cookies. They're delicious. I think they don't deliver until like early March, though. So if you order them and you don't get them right away, just, fair warning. Okay. Moving on. Autograph signature moment of the game. Presented, of course, by our friends at Autograph. Go download the Autograph app. Use code KFS. Check out my 3x3 that I recorded. That's exclusive on there from a few days ago. And I think I'm doing a chat Monday night before the game. So you can check me out there at 7:00. I will give the Autograph signature moment of the game to, I had a couple contenders here. Play in the fourth quarter. He got a heart block, shouted at the top of his lungs while the play was still alive. Not sure I ever saw that before. And then followed by a presumptuous steal, followed by Brunson pushing the pace, followed by a very nice Mikal Bridges finish after a bing, bing, bing passing sequence. I don't even know what that made the score, but it was my favorite play of the night. So that's getting the Autograph signature moment of the game.